Community-centered, community-supported. Alaska Public Media. Alaska Insight is supported in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by viewers just like you. Thank you.
Electric cars are more popular than ever in Alaska, but do they meet the test of Alaska's challenging winter road conditions?
The snow was so high that it was hitting the grill, but it handled really well.
We'll hear from an EV car owner and proponents of the technology right now on Alaska Insight. Good evening. So many of us enjoy the freedom and joy that comes with jumping in your car or truck and heading out for a road trip. If, like me, you've always done that in a gas-powered vehicle, we'll learn tonight about the distinctions of taking that trip in a vehicle that does not emit exhaust, doesn't need gas or oil, makes little to no sound, and we'll hear about how well electric vehicles perform in Alaska. But before we get to that discussion, we'll start off with some of the top stories of the week from Alaska Public Media's collaborative statewide news network. 2 U.S. Army helicopters collided and crashed Thursday near Healy while returning from a training flight, killing 3 soldiers and injuring a 4th. An Army spokesperson said the names of those killed are being withheld until relatives can be notified, and the cause of the crash is still under investigation. The crash is the second accident involving military helicopters in Alaska this year after 2 soldiers were injured when an Apache helicopter rolled after taking off from Talkeetna in February. Governor Mike Dunleavy says he's optimistic that state leaders can come to an agreement on the size of the budget before the end of the legislative session. He also says legislators may even be able to pass a long-term fiscal plan that could include a new broad-based tax. Dunleavy, who has long been resistant to taxes, says his administration will likely release a sales tax plan in the next few days that will cover most goods and services. Still, there is no clear framework for how legislators and the governor would overcome their impasse over the size of permanent fund dividends and the reluctance among some to implement new taxes with just 20 days left in the legislative session. Senator Lisa Murkowski voted with Democrats on a resolution Thursday that would pave the way for adding equal rights for women and men to the Constitution. However, the measure failed to get enough votes to advance. Murkowski was one of just 2 Republicans to vote with Democrats for the resolution, while Senator Dan Sullivan was among the no votes. Sullivan declined an interview with Alaska Public Media, but said in a statement he believes the resolution has serious constitutional infirmities. He also argued that equal protection for all is already guaranteed by the Civil Rights Act and the 14th Amendment. You can find the full versions of these stories and many more on our website, alaskapublic.org, or by downloading the Alaska Public Media app on your phone. Now on to our discussion for this evening. The Biden administration has proposed strict new pollution limits that would require up to 2/3 of new vehicles sold in the U.S. to be electric by 2032. The proposal, announced this month by the Environmental Protection Agency, could pose challenges in Alaska, where EV infrastructure is still minimal. But the state is home to a small but rapidly growing community of electric vehicle owners. Alaska Public Media's Michael Finelli took a ride with one EV owner to find out how the car handles Alaska's harsh winter conditions.
Kelly Willett just finished her workday as a medical assistant in Anchorage and is heading back to her home in Eagle River on the Glen Highway.
And then, of course, like the acceleration onto the highway is nice.
Willett's 18-mile commute is a lot more enjoyable since she bought a Tesla Model Y 6 months ago. She saved for more than 10 years to buy the car. She's been interested in the sustainability movement since studying biology in college, but Willett says she was also tired of the maintenance costs for her Subaru.
The only maintenance I have for the car is to put windshield washer fluid in it, and that's it.
Willett is part of a rapidly growing number of Alaskan EV owners. Chugach Electric Association estimates there are more than 2,300 EVs on the road in Alaska. That's still a tiny percentage of the total cars, but in Anchorage alone, the number has more than doubled in the last 2 years. Alaska's famously long and frigid winters can be problematic for EVs. Some cars can lose more than 30% of their range in cold temperatures. But Willett says she only noticed about a 10% difference this winter.
That's it. Charged. I charge it to 80% every day, which is kind of what it's recommended to charge at. And you can see now that it's just at 73%, and I've been around. It's a 36-mile-ish round trip for me.
As for the handling in ice and snow, Willett says the off-road mode came in handy on a particularly snowy day when her neighborhood hadn't been plowed.
And I still needed to get to work, and it worked great. The snow was so high that it was hitting the grill, but it handled really well.
She sees her Model Y fitting seamlessly into her Alaska lifestyle.
We're going to see this year. I'm hoping to take it out on a hunt.
Willett fat bikes, ice climbs, and hunts, often with her dog Nala.
Good girl.
As for whether EVs can ever really take off in Alaska, Willett says they already have.
I see more and more every day, and people are getting more and more receptive every day. I hope that it continues to catch on. Unfortunately, Alaska is so spread out that the charging network isn't there yet, but it's getting there. I think eventually EVs are going to be more prevalent in Alaska than you believe they could be.
There are currently 12 active fast chargers on the Alaska road system, but many more are on the way thanks to $52 million in federal infrastructure funding. In Anchorage, I'm Michael Finelli.
Joining me tonight to discuss the future of electric vehicle use in Alaska is Dimitri Shane, the Executive Director of the Alaska Electric Vehicle Association, and Mark Henspetter is also here. Mark is a Business Development Analyst for Chugach Electric. Welcome, both of you.
Great to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for being here in person. Dimitri, I want to start with you. How many Alaskans are part of the association, and sort of what's the aim of the organization?
We pretty much treat every Alaskan that buys an EV owner as a member. So as your story mentioned, there's 2,000 members. So the goal of Alaska Electric Vehicle Association is to advance EV adoption and promote infrastructure development for electric vehicles in the state.
Mm-hmm. Okay, pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
You put on the Arctic Road Rally. Mm-hmm. Tell us about this effort and why.
Well, so we try to do fun things to promote EVs in Alaska, and what we did was we built a fast charging network from Fairbanks all the way to Oliktok Point, which is the northernmost drivable point in the United States. And basically why is to say that, if you can build a fast charging network from Fairbanks to Oliktok Point and drive 10 electric vehicles there and back, you can do this anywhere. Like any highway in Alaska could be electrified. So I think we just proved the point that EVs are good and possible in Alaska.
And how was that trip?
It was amazing. It was amazing scenery. It was. I'd like to thank ConocoPhillips for hosting us at Kapparik Operations Center. It was very beautiful and a great learning experience.
What initially convinced you to buy an electric vehicle? Why did you decide to make that change?
I always was interested in electric vehicles, but my apprehension has always been because we have a big family, I have 6 children, and I needed a vehicle that could fit a large family. So Tesla made the Model X that could fit 7 people, and then I decided, this is the time, and I've been pretty happy. I've had this vehicle for 6 years now.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Dimitri, for starting us off. Mark, I want to turn to you now. Chugach Electric has an incentive program for people who buy home charging units. Tell us about that program.
Yeah, so we have an incentive program that's for our residential members. So if they purchase an EV and install a charging, either a plug or a charger in their homes, we'll give them a bill credit, a $200 bill credit for that incentive. And that's for home charging, that's at 240 volts, so it's faster than just your 120 volt standard plug, but it is for
residential members, but we also have a similar program for commercial members. So we have incentive program for both level 2, which is up to $1,000, and then for DC fast charging for commercial members as well, which is up to $5,000 to install those more expensive but also faster chargers.
How long has the program been in place, and how widely adopted is it becoming? How many people have them now?
So our residential program was started in 2021. We currently have just under 200 members who are actively participating in that, which, based off of the number of EVs registered in the Anchorage area, is about 20-25%. So we've seen, a lot of interest in that program, and it's helped people install EV chargers and charge them at home.
Well, you brought one with you today. Let's look at it. And what does it cost for someone to put one of these in?
So well, I'll start just by showing this, and this is a Tesla mobile connector. It's Tesla branded, but this here will work with any electric vehicle today. So this is about $230.
Okay.
This is my personal one. I own and drive an EV and charge at home. And this is an adapter, so this is the Tesla plug. So this would work with a Tesla vehicle, and then this adapter goes on, and it will work with all the other EVs. So I like this one because it's really flexible. This will charge any EV, and you can see here, this is just a standard 120 volt plug, like you have any wall outlet, or you can swap this out and put on a higher speed plug that, if I can get this right, that would plug into, say, a dryer outlet if you have a dryer in your garage.
I was going to say, that would require not just your regular household current, but...
This would be a regular
220?
household current that you already have. So this would be 240 volts.
Oh, 240, okay.
Yep, and that's all you need for fast charging. So a lot of people already have the infrastructure in their homes to do EV charging, level 2 EV charging. I usually just plug in at the 120 volt. But there's a lot of flexibility, and it varies on cost, kind of depending on how fast you want to charge.
Sure, that makes sense.
A level 2 charger that has Wi-Fi connectivity and some smart management tools might be in the $500 to $600 range, but the costs are coming down. And if you're willing to charge a little bit slower, say maybe for 4 or 5 hours overnight, you can get a charger like this for less than $300.
You also brought an image of a level 3 charger. Let's see that. And tell us about the differences between level 2 and level 3 in terms of speed for charging and also the price.
Yeah, so this is the level 3 charging station that's over at the Diamond Center. And that one's capable of up to 62 kilowatts. So that's about 10 times faster than what this is capable of here. Those are direct current charging stations, so DC fast charging stations, level 3, that's kind of the terminology. And those units are much more expensive. So the return on investment for a level 3 charging station is longer than for a level 2. Those cost anywhere from $50,000 and up, depending on how fast you get. Modern charging stations now can be upwards of 250 or 300 kilowatts.
Oh, okay.
So speeds are rapidly increasing as vehicles increase their voltage. So the actual voltage of the vehicle battery has an impact on how fast it can charge. But the Diamond Center charger will take about an hour to charge your vehicle up if you're at a low state of charge, up to 80% or more.
There's federal money aimed at getting more fast chargers installed. You said they can be up to $50,000?
So some of the DC fast chargers at very high speeds are, start at $50,000.
Wow.
So
okay.
To develop a site that meets the standards for the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure grants, the NEVI funding, those require that there's going to be 4 charging stations capable of 150 kilowatts or more. So that could be a site that's very expensive to develop. AEA's estimated it could be $1 million per site for some of those. Once you factor in all the equipment, the hardware, the switchgear, transformers, site development. So this is a significant investment and EV infrastructure, but it will have a long return.
And is it about $52 million coming to Alaska to help support that?
There's going to be $52 million total. The first phase right now is going to be for the alternative fuel corridor between Anchorage and Fairbanks. I believe it's $16 million that's in the first round of funding.
Yeah.
I had someone say to me the other day, well, we're not ready for electric cars here because how are you going to get to Fairbanks? And I was thinking about how when I first moved to Alaska and people said, if you're driving to Fairbanks, you have to stop in Cantwell or you won't make it. Is it the same thing now that there is a charger in Cantwell, correct?
It's interesting you brought that up. There's actually 2 fast chargers in Cantwell. So so you can drive to Fairbanks. In the wintertime, you would probably have to do some planning to make sure you arrive at the fast chargers with enough range and budget some time for charging. But other than that, I think Mark just drove to Fairbanks recently, so in his EV. So
yep, on Tuesday, I went from Anchorage to Fairbanks and back actually in a day. I went up the Parks Highway and came back the Richardson and Glen highways because like Dimitri said, there are fast chargers in Cantwell, in Healy, in Fairbanks, in Delta Junction, and Glen Allen now. So there's a lot more, fast charging. It's still not ultra high speed, but there is fast charging, and a lot of people don't even realize it.
So Dimitri, as someone still driving a gas engine car, how different is the feeling as you're driving? I have a manual transmission in my car too, it's older. It's hard for me to imagine driving a vehicle that operates on a completely different setup than a mechanical drivetrain.
yeah, I mean, some people who drive an EV, they say, oh, it feels like a roller coaster because it's just so effortless that you're kind of floating. But I mean, it's a good feeling. It's it's very convenient. It has additional electric vehicles offer additional conveniences like being able to warm up your vehicle with an app in your garage, and having lots of features and connectivity. So yeah, it's a great vehicle to drive in Alaska.
And what do you find for the differences between winter and summer conditions? You've had yours for 6 years now. How much reduction is there in cold weather for how far you can go on a charge?
I think a simple way to describe this is that at wintertime, at summertime, I can go about 3 days without plugging in my car at home. And in wintertime, because you're running the heater, there's maybe snow on the road, I'll have to plug in my vehicle every evening. And it's just as simple in your video. You just kind of plug it in, and you go to sleep, and you wake up, and you have a full tank of gas. So it's pretty effortless.
Have to find some new terminology there. It seems like things are really starting to advance fairly well around South Central and up through the corridor up to Fairbanks. But for folks that want to go on the other roads that we do have, there aren't a ton of them, but is there a way for them to find out where they can see about where a charging station may be? How will they know that?
Well, like everything else in life, there's an app for that. So it's called plugshare.com, and it has a list of charging sites, and they vary from official fast charging sites to level 2 sites, and even some motorhomes and so forth and campsites offer level 2 charging. So you kind of have some options for traveling around.
So you can see there's the PlugShare app there, and so
that's
you can
fantastic.
actually see the map that shows the Anchorage area, and then you can pan around to other areas of the state.
Yeah.
It's a very useful tool for planning.
Very useful, yes, thank you. There are incentives for buying and leasing electric cars within the Federal Infrastructure Act up to $7,500. What do you know about these incentives? And for leasing, are there many options yet in Alaska? Do either one of you have ideas about that?
Yeah, so the provisions on the federal tax side have been rather dynamic, and it's been a bit of a moving target, but where things have landed now, it is going to require that the vehicles you purchase are assembled in North America, have a majority of their components, the battery minerals and materials, sourced from North American production or free trade partners. So there's some criteria there. So not all EVs are eligible for the tax credit. But most of the GM products are, most of the Ford products are EVs, and Volkswagen as well as some Teslas. So,
How did Volkswagen get in there?
so Volkswagen actually, the vehicle I have, the ID4, is made in America. They have a new assembly line in Chattanooga, Tennessee. The battery's assembled nearby in Georgia. So there's a lot of manufacturing that's coming to the U.S. to take advantage of these tax credits. If you are looking to lease a vehicle, there's more options, even like the Subaru Solterra is eligible for the lease. The Hyundai Ioniq 5, I believe, is eligible. So there's a bit more flexibility on the leasing side, and that might be a good way for people to kind of get their feet wet and try an EV.
And how easy or difficult is it right now to go out and buy an electric vehicle in Anchorage or Alaska generally today?
I would say, of course, it depends on what kind of vehicle, but if you can, just about every dealership, major dealer in town has some kind of an EV, like Hyundai or Kia. Ford has the Ford Lightning, VW, and so just about every single dealer has an offering of an electric vehicle. So things really have changed in the last 5 years.
You mentioned that the incentives, the materials have to be primarily sourced in the U.S. We know that most of the rare earth minerals and a lot of the components are coming from China and other places currently. How difficult will that make it to get those incentives when there isn't a lot of that sourcing that's happening, at least not currently in the U.S.? That might ramp up in the future, but isn't happening right now.
It is ramping up right now, and so there's going to be a lot more flexibility, over the next 2 to 5 years on where those materials are coming from. Right now, there's a lot of the raw materials, like say the lithium, for example. A lot of that's coming from Australia, so it's not just to be eligible for the tax credits. It's not just U.S. sourced, but free trade partners as well.
I see.
So there is some flexibility there, and there's going to continue to be more exploration in North America because there are reserves of these materials. Some of them, like lithium again, just need to be accessed in a different way. So there's technologies to extract it from geothermal brines and kind of different types of mineral extraction that's low impact.
There's also a fairly robust recycling program with these vehicles.
Yeah, and if I could just add one more point to Mark, what Mark is saying, you just check the IRS.gov website for which vehicles qualify.
Absolutely.
And shop with confidence, knowing that you can buy an EV that qualifies for the tax credit. But yeah, there's with batteries, there are major recycling programs that are starting, and funding from the federal government is being administered to make sure that there is a responsible way to recycle EV batteries.
And that's there's a fairly high percentage of these components being recycled, correct?
There is. I think Tesla, as of like 2020, I think Tesla was saying they were at about 92%. Redwood Materials, which is another major recycling manufacturer that now has partnerships with Ford and some other major automakers, they're saying about 95% recoverable. So it's, I think, an important message that these batteries in these vehicles have a lot of materials, and that material is still valuable even if it isn't useful to the EV anymore. It can be either repurposed as stationary storage if it just has slightly less energy density but still works fine. And if it's an EV that's been in an accident and needs to be deconstructed, those materials still have a lot of value because they're already processed. We don't need to go into the ground to get them. They're already there.
Right.
Just repackage them and put them back in a car.
Dimitri, you said the bonus of owning an electric vehicle is the fun of driving it, but you said the jury is still out on whether they are actually cheaper to buy and own than a gas engine car. Why is there not more of a clear distinction for you here?
Well, it is a very new technology, and repairing something that's brand new and parts may not be readily available, it may just lead to longer lead times and longer wait times to get your vehicle repaired. And some of the parts, like computers and screens and all the fancy things that we see in new products, tend to be a little bit more expensive to repair.
Let's look at Chugach Electric looks at the number of fully electric and hybrids registered in Alaska every 6 months, and we have a graphic about that. The graph shows that fully electric vehicles are more popular, which kind of surprises me given the current limits for charging. It's getting better. But for both of you, what do you hear from owners about why they choose a fully electric over a hybrid?
Well, one of the reasons a lot of people choose full battery electric is it's so much simpler. A plug-in hybrid is is more complex than even a traditional vehicle because you still have a gas engine, drivetrain, and battery, electric motors and drivetrain. Whereas a full battery electric vehicle, it's just electric motors and battery. There's, orders of magnitude less moving parts and the maintenance that goes with that. So that's one of the reasons.
And what do you hear from your association members?
Yeah, I would agree. It's just kind of the plug-in version, the hybrid version. It's kind of just takes the complexity of both vehicles and puts it into one, and that's why people tend to go either a gas vehicle or a V vehicle, a full EV, and that's why you see full battery electric vehicles outperforming the plug-in versions.
All right, well, thank you both so much. This went by very quickly. It was fun to see an actual charger and how simple the technology is, so thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
It's interesting to consider what the future could be like with more electric vehicles plying the roads of Alaska. Less pollution from tailpipe emissions, and for people who live by busy city roads like me, less noise drifting to my house from the loud vehicles streaming by. We know the fuel transition will take time, but cleaner, quieter energy technology is the aim for the future health of the planet and ourselves, even in a state that for decades has made its bread and butter from extracting fossil fuel. That's it for this edition of Alaska Insight. Visit our website, alaskapublic.org, for breaking news and reports from our partner stations across the state. While you're there, sign up for our free daily digest so you won't miss any of Alaska's top stories of the day. Thanks for joining us this evening. I'm Lori Townsend. Good night.